Ready?
Man, just get a swig of water here.
Yeah, me too.
Oh. There we go.
La 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 la. Alright, we're back. Episode 12 of Crosstalk. I'm Tim.
I'm Chris.
And today we're talking about how film fans and critics often alienate the general public with their vast knowledge of film.
Or their experiences, it's just the way they see film, right?
Just their love of film alienates people.
Right.
So, Chris, as a film fan slash critic slash fanatic,
right.
How do you personally feel that you have alienated people in the past with your, as they say, joie de vie?
Nice. I know personally for me, there's certain films I can't enjoy because I can't get past the logic gap in them. And I talked about it before, Armageddon quickly comes to mind.
Yeah.
I can't get past that logic gap at the beginning, train drillers to be astronauts. Easier to train astronauts to be drillers. That's just stupid. I can't get past it. So
And you won't watch it.
And I just won't watch it. So people will, but it's a really entertaining film. You just ignore that. And I can't just ignore that. Or I'm approaching a film critically like, wow, that was a really good movie, except they cast this person wrong. Like, I think they should have maybe went younger or older, or
Right.
somebody who's maybe a bit of a better actor, or you know what? This score could have been like a lot better. It could have evoked some more emotions what they were going for, or and the dialogue in that one scene was so that I think that really puts people off. I've often gotten told
Feedback.
that. Why can't you just enjoy a movie?
And as I would say, I do enjoy films. Why couldn't that have been a film?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, there are qualities that, in my opinion, are integral to making a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you don't need to hit all 10 points
Right.
to have a successful film. It just has to hit 7 or 8 of them, maybe 6,
Yeah, right.
really well in order for it to be something that I put on my shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And if something just doesn't do that, or as my friend Justin would say, if something already does that in another film, why would I pick it up?
Yeah, there's always something out there that exists that does it better.
Yeah.
Why spend your time on that? Because you only get so much time to watch movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can be a divisive topic when you're dating, or because I don't want to go see that movie because, I've done my research and read reviews and it's terrible. Well, how you haven't seen it? Well, generally speaking, I think people are passionate about film and know what they like.
They're prepared.
Maybe you can't always prejudge it, but you will do your research first.
Yeah.
So you'll read reviews and you'll watch the trailer.
It's a question of, do you respect your own time?
Yeah, exactly.
I say this a lot on the main blog and on when I talk to artists. If you want to be a success at anything in life, you have to invest a certain amount of time and effort and energy into that practice.
Mm-hmm.
And, as someone who is respected in that field, I find that film doesn't translate as easily because even more so than art, everyone thinks that they can be a critic of film.
You often hear that. Everyone's a critic, right? You often hear that saying.
But the problem is that not everyone is a critic in reality because they don't invest that time.
So there's that divide that it creates there, I think. So, or in the case of some, in the case of some movies, maybe marketed to a specific gender or segment of the market, that segment will be really tied into it, and then critically, it's a terrible movie.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's one of those things where it can cause conflict when you're dating or something like that, right?
Or even, like when you're dating or friendships or professional relationships.
Yeah.
I find for me at work, because I know a lot of people outside of work, it somehow always filters into my work.
Yeah.
And
because it's part of who you are, right?
Because it's part of who I am, and as a consequence of that, people will often come to me and say things like, "Oh, Tim, have you seen this movie?" or "What do you think of this?" And I'm really hesitant to share my opinion
because you never know how somebody's going to react.
Because I think they might be. It's almost like, and I don't take this to mean that I'm expecting them to be upset with me, but I also sometimes feel like I'm being coerced into a situation where it's going to create conflict.
Yeah, sure. And also, too, sometimes you have to be careful because if your manager asks you about something, you're like, "Nah, I'm not gonna see that. That's stupid." Really? Because that was like my favorite movie, and like I loved it. And you're like, yeah.
As an example, I know it's bad to keep harping on Suicide Squad, but I really don't like it, so I'm going to.
I know a lot of people don't. So you're not. It's not like you're unique.
No. So I had people say, "Oh, you should go watch Suicide Squad. It's so good," and I'm like.
So you gotta fight your instincts and dial it back and say, okay. Because, again, so another part of that, and alluding to what you just said, sometimes you come off as judgmental, too.
Yeah.
So how dare you see this terrible movie that's in theaters?
There was a time when I would do that, though. I would go and just watch a ton of movies to see a lot of movies and have something to say about them. So even then, that was something that I was doing, and it was like, you're watching all these movies? Like, my dad would be... Sorry, Dad. My dad would be like, "You're wasting all this money on going and watching movies." And my uncle would be like, "Why don't you go buy a car instead?" I'm like, "Well, I feel like that's half of one and, six of one.
Six
of one and half doesn't
the other. Yeah, sure.
I always screw that one up. Anyway, but the point is, there's a perception out there that being a critic of film is sort of not... valuable.
Yeah, like I often hear that about critics. They're just a critic. They don't really. All they like is art films. And that's not true. I mean, if you look like Fast and Furious, for example, does well with critics. It's not an art house movie at all. But people, they gloss over that fact, right? So
yeah. So what I was gonna say is, we were talking about sequels being made and bad movies continuing because people enjoy watching bad movies. They like to punish themselves for some reason or another. So, one of my favorite critics, and I've talked about her before. Her name is Comic Book Girl 19.
Right.
And she talks about this in one of her videos. So, kudos to her. Mm-hmm. And she says, the reason why bad movies keep getting made is because we keep letting them be made because we go and watch them.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, and that I put a caveat here. I don't say like do this with absolute certainty, or vehemently do this, but critics are providing a service to help people make decisions about what movies to watch.
Mm-hmm. Somebody could think that Prince of Persia is a good movie. They're incorrect, but they could think that way, and that's the thing. It's so subjective that how do you define bad? Because you can write it down like. Somebody takes a doctor's word, right? Because they have a medical diploma from somewhere. They have a certain basis of knowledge. Mm-hmm. They can generally speaking, things. They can back it up with fact. You can't really back up an opinion with things. Typically, people, they see the bad movies and they're bad blockbuster movies. So how I try and phrase it a little bit is, maybe go see this little one. It's really good. You might enjoy it. And, by the way, this person, they probably made it on a shoestring budget. It's a labor of love. Like, if you want to see more little guys make stuff that's different, go see it. And say, this is better than, independent film Y is better than Blockbuster X. I try not to phrase it that way. So that's maybe an avenue to take the conversation, right?
It's difficult, though, because I've been in situations like that where I've recommended a smaller scale film to a larger scale film.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start using terms that people don't know...
Yeah, fair enough. There's a disconnect there, too.
There's a huge disconnect there, right? So the challenge is not only do you have to be careful not to talk over people with your geeky film terminology.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be confident in your delivery of that connection. And say, you really liked this new Ryan Gosling movie. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe you'll like this Ryan Reynolds movie because they're both very attractive male actors.
Fair enough, but I think you had it backwards. The quality and the size of films they usually do.
Yes.
So Reynolds usually does the bad ones.
Yeah.
Gosling usually does the good ones. Yeah, so we can turn around the other way. We can say, like, how does the movie-going public maybe alienate us?
Sure. So I would say that the general populace alienates critics when they expect our full participation in a review. And when I say full participation, I mean supporting it.
Yeah, despite the quality, despite what we actually think. Yeah.
Or what we actually think. You know, like, there's been a lot, you know, especially in the past 2 years, there's been a lot of controversy because there's so much access to from between the public and the creators of art. And we've talked about this on a previous episode.
That's right. Yeah.
So anyone can go to that artist and say, this is what I think about this. You're a bad person. And I'm being generous with my terms here.
You think?
But and the same goes for critics. You know,
mm-hmm.
The critic gets lambasted because they disagree with a film. You know, for whatever reason.
Review, yeah, and it's perfectly valid opinion. You are free to do with that information what you will. You can just ignore it. Like, if that's the thing, I've seen movies. I've seen a bunch of different movies where I disagree with the critical reviews of it all the time, and just if I'm interested enough to see something, and The Tension is a perfect example. It's pretty divisive. It's like it's maybe 50-50 with critics, but if I'm interested enough, I'll go check it out. Hey, that sounds interesting.
Yeah,
and I'll just not listen to the criticism of that. But so I'm almost stepping into the shoes of the average film goer with me, right?
Right.
I'll just sort of disregard it. Well, I'll watch it anyway. I'll check it out. Maybe I won't buy a ticket, but maybe I'll check it out when it comes out on the movie network or something, right?
And, you know, there's a perception that you're just inherently a negative person because...
Yeah, exactly.
Because your criteria for what makes something enjoyable experience or not is a little bit more articulated.
Yeah.
So, you know, on the one hand, there's the assumption that, oh, you like this movie? Well, it's probably good then.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you get, you know, that's where the double-edged sword comes in. On the other hand, it's like, oh, well, you dislike this movie, you probably, you know...
We're just not going to agree on it, so let's just stop talking about it, and it unfortunately ends the
conversation stops because they've made up their mind, and, you know, in some ways it's hurtful because you actually enjoy the conversation. That's what's...
Even if you disagree, you can still have an interesting conversation around the film.
Yeah, because it could lead to another conversation. You're not necessarily going to hit every single, you know, decision perfectly.
Exactly.
So you may come back and
in fact, you're going to be wrong a lot, and critics will tell you that.
Yeah.
It's like, you're wrong a lot.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
But it doesn't mean that you know, you aren't, your opinion isn't valid just because you don't agree with the populace, you know, in all cases, or the reasons why you agree with the populace are different.
Yeah, and I've had it to come back so
You're overthinking this, Tim.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey. I've had it come back to where, to that point, you give an opinion about a movie and you happen to be wrong, and then after the fact, and this is another example of alienation. Not the movie or the TV show. Boom. Anyway, so you have it brought around after the fact that it's sort of rubbing your face a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's one of those, see, I told you, like, you just need to think less, or come to, you know, you need to come to my level more, you need to think less, or you need to, you know, you need to get past you need to not be so judgmental.
I've brought in more enjoyable movies to my friends and family than I have misled them.
And that's ultimately the point you want to get to.
Yeah.
Like, you want to get, like, even if you're wrong sometimes, you just want to start a conversation, and you want to spread the love for under-championed movies.
Mm-hmm.
and film that does, if you know that, like, maybe even if people don't share your tastes or don't respond critically the way you do to film, they'll still like it, and as a consequence, more of them will get made.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the goal behind it. So it comes from a good place.
You want people to find things. It's like treasure hunting. You want them to find hidden treasures that you wouldn't have found on your own necessarily.
Yeah.
And, the critic is the one who is willing to mine through things almost obsessively.
Yeah.
To find something noteworthy, right?
Yeah, I've often seen reviews phrased, X movie, I watch it so you don't have to.
Yeah.
You're almost trying to get them to spread their
wings.
Their movie wings, right? And just go out there and find stuff on their own. Like, you don't need me to tell you. I can steer you in a bit of a direction, but you won't need me to tell you what calls to you, and you can find these hidden ones, and ultimately too, it can lead to a really exciting and passionate conversation about, hey, have you seen da da da? Like, it was like you pointed me and you mentioned this film, but then I found this other one. It's like, have you seen it yet? And I'm like, oh yeah, what do you think about it? And then boom, conversation, and it turns into a really passionate, even if you disagree about the quality or the tone or the message or whatever, you find it interesting, and then something more comes of it. So
yeah, I mean, like, for example, and I think we've talked about this one too, but a specific movie example for me was Ex Machina. Like, I knew about it, I thought about watching it on several occasions. I never got around to it until finally, a few months ago, when I was looking for a movie to review, and you kept harping this movie over and over again.
And I watched it one day when I was sick.
I've had people who've watched it and said that it was a good movie, but not to the same level of attention that I usually get from my interactions with you.
Right.
And I now can recommend that movie very freely because of that exposure, like that willingness to go and watch something. And I think that's the other thing, is that a lot of people like films, but they're not willing to take chances on films.
Yeah, they because the way they consume them is when there's nothing on, or on a date night, or like on a movie night, you're just trying to decide,
fill the void,
something to do, fill the void. So you're looking for something that is easily consumable, or you don't have to spend a lot of time reflecting on, or in the case of being at home, a tried and true favorite, something you're familiar with, that's comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, but the thing is, but
it's nice to take those chances.
It's nice to take the chances, and there are people who should be admired for their willingness to do that.
Yeah. So I think it's a worthwhile endeavor, like trying to bridge the gaps between the two sides, for sure.
Yeah, and I would say, movie critics, maybe dial it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't be so intense in your observations. Don't be so ill-formed in your opinions. And let me rephrase that. I think that movie critics have well-formed opinions, but they're social opinions of things. Yeah. Be a little bit more considerate of people's feelings when you talk about movies.
Yeah. Don't be so judgmental about their tastes.
Yeah.
Try and connect with them in a way that they'll understand what you're talking about. Don't use inside lingo unless they have an understanding.
Or they ask
what it means. Or they, wow, you're really passionate about this movie, why?
Yeah.
And you can start off with something general, and they be like, well, why do you like that, like this? And you can maybe then go into a little bit more detail if they decide to take the conversation there.
Yeah. And
so conversely, on the other side, as film fans and somebody who's ready to give you an honest opinion about a movie, maybe don't take it as an assault on your taste and yourself, your identity.
Again, we've said this in previous episodes, but that's where we're hoping to bridge that gap, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
By just having a casual conversation about film in a way that anyone could drop in and theoretically drop in on our couch and
just sit down and talk about movies, and we will not judge. You can talk about what you want, Well, we may offer a differing opinion, but we'll always back it up as to why.
Yeah, and without the assumption that we know better.
Yeah, at least we try to do that.
I mean,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're only human. But
we're only human, right?
So all we can do is just try and bridge that gap.
Yeah. So what do you think, Chris? Did we cover this topic?
I think so. I think we did a pretty good job, and I think we outlined some good things back in from both sides.
It's always a tough one to talk about because we take it personally, but I think
there's a lot of emotion involved, and rightly so. I mean, you get attached to something.
Yeah.
It becomes part of your identity, and I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what did you think about this conversation? We would love to have you comment below, engage us in conversation. That's what we're looking to do, start a conversation. So please comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can like and share the video as well, and even better, subscribe to the channel.
Until next time, I'm Tim.
And I'm Chris.
And this is Crosstalk.